This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet, a slim front pocket wallet available in carbon fiber and titanium. With more than 250,000 sold, a lifetime guarantee and free shipping, get 10% off with the code GOLDFISH at ridgewallet.com. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Tuesday means it's Type 2 or Standard Tuesday, and we have a pretty interesting take on a mono red deck for Guilds of Ravnica Standard to look at today. This is Experimental Red, a deck that is not just mono red, but really looking to harness the power of Experimental Frenzy to just play a ton of cards and generate huge amounts of card advantage. This one comes to us from Boyne, who took it to a 5-0 finish in a competitive Standard League on Magic Online. So congrats to Boyne on a super sweet deck. A quick reminder before we break down Experimental Red for Guilds of Ravnica Standard. If you enjoyed this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Experimental Red is all about Experimental Frenzy, the crazy enchantment. So 4 mana lets you look at the top card of your library, play the top card of your library, with the drawback of not being able to play cards from your hand, but then you can pay 4 mana to destroy it if you want to. So this is a card that you can just play generically for card advantage, but this deck, Experimental Red, is actually built around harnessing Experimental Frenzy's power. So the thing that makes Experimental Frenzy fizzle is multiple lands for the most part. So if you play a land and then have another land on top of your deck, you kind of run out of card advantage for that turn because you can only play one land each turn. But this deck is built to kind of get around that drawback. So how do you break Experimental Frenzy in Standard? And this is where we have a couple of interesting options. So Treasure Map and Dismissive Pyromancer are our main synergy cards for Experimental Frenzy. So Treasure Map, scrying is good anyway, but it's especially good if you know what's on top of your deck. So when you can look at the top card of your deck, you can play your non-land cards, wait until you hit a second land that you can't do anything with to fizzle Experimental Frenzy, and then for 1 mana just scry that to the bottom, and then hopefully keep playing more cards. Dismissive Pyromancer are kind of the same way. For 1 mana you can discard a card to draw a card, which you don't mind discarding cards because you can't play them from your hand anyway with Experimental Frenzy out, but that's another way you can get through a land for just 1 mana. So the main plan of this deck is to play a bunch of cheap red things, get down your Experimental Frenzy, play 2, 3, 4 cards, however many cards you can play in a turn, and then use Treasure Map and Dismissive Pyromancer to get through those land drops to keep playing more and more cards and just overwhelm the opponent with a ton of value and card advantage from Experimental Frenzy. So we have another interesting piece to go along with Experimental Frenzy, and that is Runaway Steam Ken. So since we are mono red, pretty much every spell we play, except for Treasure Map, is going to be a red card, which means they keep adding counters to our Runaway Steam Ken, and then once we get up to 3 counters, we can add 3 mana by removing those counters. So this lets us keep comboing off essentially with Experimental Frenzy. We play a card, get a counter on Steam Ken, play a card, get a counter on Steam Ken, play a card, get a counter on Steam Ken, remove all those counters. That lets us keep playing more cards, which puts more counters on Steam Ken, and our deck is intentionally very low to the ground. We have a lot of 1 mana red spells, 2 mana red spells. We top out at a 3 mana red spell, so we can kind of not go infinite, but potentially play like 5, 10 cards in a single turn with the help of Runaway Steam Ken making mana and our Dismissive Pyromancer and Treasure Map getting rid of those extra lands that would fizzle our big boost of card advantage. Plus, Runaway Steam Ken ends up just being a 4/4 for 2 mana, which is a pretty good deal and pretty good attacker on its own. So that's kind of the primary plan of the deck. To back this up, we have a couple more creatures. Get to Lava Runner works really well with the Runaway Steam Ken plan because it's 1 mana to cast, but assuming we get those 3 counters, we get that 1 mana back in the form of Runaway Steam Ken giving us 3 mana. So in some sense, it's kind of like a free card with Experimental Frenzy and Runaway Steam Ken. And then Goblin Chain Whirler, it's just too good to pass up. I mean, it doesn't especially synergize with Runaway Steam Ken being 3 mana, but it is just a really powerful threat for an aggressive mono red deck. So this is our creature suite. Then we have a bunch of removal. So Shock and Lightning Strike give us removal spells that can deal with creatures, but can also also just go to our opponent's face, shock, light, get to Lava Runner, just 1 mana, so we get that free effect with our Steam Ken, and then Lightning Strike, a lot of damage going to the face. So if we can't quite finish our opponent off with our janky red creatures, we can just kill our opponent by throwing a flurry of shocks and lightning strikes at our opponent's face. And then we have Lava Coil and Shivan Fire, which are additional removal spells. They can't actually go to our opponent's face, which is a bit of a drawback, but they let us kill bigger creatures, keep our opponent's board under control, and are cheap enough to work really well with Experimental Frenzy and our Runaway Steam Ken combo. As far as the mana base, 22 mountains, about as simple as it can get. Sideboard wise, we get some more removal to customize what we're killing. Shivan Fire for the early game against aggro. Fight with Fire takes down bigger things like Lyras. Also, if the game goes long and we're hitting these land drops with our Experimental Frenzy and maybe making some mana with our Steam Ken, we can kick it and just throw 10 damage out of nowhere at our opponent's face, which is kind of a nice option. Then we can kind of go bigger with our creatures. Siege Game Commander, good at clogging up the ground with a bunch of tokens, throwing more damage at our opponent's face. Rekindling Phoenix is a big recursive flying threat. And then to facilitate these bigger threats, we have some mountains in the sideboard. So if we're bringing in our 5-drops and our 4-drops and making our deck more expensive, we can bring in some more mountains as well to make sure we can actually cast those expensive things on time. And that is Experimental Red for Guilds of Ravnica Standard. And that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.